Hello everybody and welcome back to the virtual racing compound Porsche Super Cup. You join myself, Jack Werrell, once again back in the commentary box to run you through all of the highlights from round 2 here at Sebring International Raceway. We are on the slightly shorter layout to what I'm sure some of you are used to. However, we have lots more action on the way. Once again, a 15-minute sprint race followed by a 25-minute feature race, and the drivers now have points on the board coming off the back of Road Atlanta. And fingers crossed, we have yet more action, even closer and maybe even a little bit cleaner this time round. But like we say, we are here at Sebring for round 2, Interlagos for round 3, and then we will head over towards Europe for round 4 and 5, the Red Bull Ring and Spa. So we've got lots more to look forward to in the 8-round season. But full focus now for the drivers and myself is round 2 here at Sebring. So with the qualifying session completed, we can now run you through the grid for the first race of the day. Tyler Campbell takes pole position for FTR Esports with a 1 minute 1.959 alongside Martin de Jong. Peter Plasto has got his VRC teammate for company on row 2, Matt Forrest. Then we get back to Remco Barlow and Chris Roberts making up row 3. Row 4 is Cody Steig and Nicholas Cucato. Craig Thompson and Lee Tucker round out your first 10 starters. Then it's Stuart Jacklin in 11th and Chris Pio in 12th. Shortly followed by Gaston Maceroni, Sean Nicholson, Stephen Orrell and Alexander King making out your 16-strong car grid here at Sebring. So the drivers getting ready on the start-finish line, and very shortly we will be getting underway. Just waiting for our pole sitter to enter the grid. Remco Barlow also, as well as Alexander King, just sat towards the tail end of the order, waiting for the drivers just to take to the circuit, and we will very shortly be getting underway for the first time here at Sebring. So revs rising in the background, lights will very shortly be turning on and they extinguish. Now it's an okay start from our pole sitter. Everybody works their way through in the background. Lots of chopping and changing, a little bit of contact, but it's still Tyler Campbell leading them in towards turn 1. Then followed by Martin de Jong. Lots of contact in the background. Hopefully everybody's pointing the right way. No, I think Craig Thompson's involved in that one. Potentially Peter Plasto goes off the road in avoidance, but at the moment it's Tyler Campbell leading Martin de Jong. Then we go back to Remco Barlow and Chris Roberts in 4th place. Cody Steig up 2 positions from where he started, trying to pull away from Nicholas Cucato. Gaston Maceroni with a dream start, up 6 places from where he started. Lee Tucker now in 8th. Matt Forrest down 5. He's down in 9th place now. Peter Plasto has lost 11 places, so lots of work to do in the first 15-minute race of the evening. We're now seeing more and more battles slowly start to evolve. Lots of chopping and changing. That's Matt Forrest trying to work his way up the inside of Lee Tucker. He does so successfully. Grabs the apex first. Round the hairpin we go. Runs slightly wide, but manages to cover off any advances from behind. Up the road, you can see Cody Steig is piling the pressure on Chris Roberts, or attempting to, but he has now got Nicholas Cucato having a little look up the inside. He gave it a go on the brakes, but couldn't quite get the move done. Tyler Campbell fastest lap of the race now, 1 minute 4.66, so really starting to shift up the gears and trying to pull away from Martin de Jong behind. But Nicholas Cucato so far running a very, very safe race, trying not to slow down and fall into the clutches of his Virtua Racing teammate Gaston Maceroni behind, but also pile that pressure on the car in front. Chris Roberts with a big lock up the road, trying to catch up to Remco Barlow. Stephen Orrell and Sean Nicholson swapping places. Sean Nicholson all over the grass, all over the curb. That allows Peter Plasto to get through. Stephen Orrell does so as well, but then runs slightly wide and compromises that exit. Peter Plasto really starting to reel him in now. So on the run down the straight we go towards the hairpin. Pete looks to the inside, almost gifted the inside there. Stephen deciding not to fight that position too hard. On the brakes, the noses of the car both dive down towards the ground. Lots and lots of tyre smoke, so clearly a few cars locking up slightly further up the road. But Peter Plasto now up another place into 12th, and Tyler Campbell once again fastest lap of the race, so 1 minute 2.56. So really, really starting to shift forward now. Now you can see Matthew Forrest really trying to pile that pressure on Gaston Maceroni. On the brakes, he doesn't manage to get it slowed down. A big lock up in towards the tail end of the Argentinian driver. Gaston Maceroni also gets the car slowed down, albeit with a little bit of damage on the tail end of that car now. So close underneath the rear wing is Matt Forrest. So Matt desperately trying to get by, but that little mistake has lost him a fair chunk of time to Lee Tucker behind in the Apex Tech car, who has his teammate Chris Pio behind, really playing rear gunner at this point. There for defence if required from Stuart Jacklin. It's getting close for the final step on the podium. Chris Roberts has a little look to the outside, forces Remco Barlow to go defensive, then cuts back to the inside with a lock-up from Remco, so a great move from Chris Roberts, manages to read the situation perfectly, forces Remco into a mistake, goes through and swoops third place with a little bit of a gap building already. So now back to the action. We've been slowly watching along, keeping an eye on this battle. Chris Pio has been coming under further pressure from Peter Plasto. He's now looking to the inside on the run up towards the hairpin, ducks back into the draft, decides to brake nice and early to try and better his exit, so cuts towards the apex. You can see the rear brake discs glowing on Pete's car, running a very rearward brake bias, and it's really working for him. He's got the pace. He's only about a thousandth off getting fastest lap of the race, so he's really starting to shift forward now. He's much closer to Chris Pio this time, looks to the inside once again, ducks underneath the rear wing. So heading through sector 1 once again. We've got the long left-hander before a quick flick right, hard on the brakes before you get to a 90 right, and this is where we're slowly seeing Pete get the position made by the looks of that. Chris Pio off the road and potentially in towards the tyre barrier. He does manage to retake to the circuit without any visual damage, but I was going to say Pete was going to go for the move around about there anyway. He seems to be much more confident on the brakes in towards sector 2, but that is now position made, position secure, and he can focus forward on towards catching Lee Tucker, who's 1.9 seconds up the road. So with 5 minutes of the race to go, Pete Plasto is now back in towards the top 10, and the lead is somewhat safe for Tyler Campbell, 1.7 seconds clear of Martin de Jong. Martin de Jong in second place, some 2.2 seconds clear of Chris Roberts, who has still got Remco Barlow chomping at the bit within a second, so he's there or thereabouts, and like I say, with still 5 minutes of the race to go, Chris Roberts is all but safe on that final step of the podium. With the race slowly entering the closing stages now, we're seeing this battle get closer and closer and closer. So at the moment, Nicholas Cacato trying to get past Cody Steig, albeit now under pressure from Matthew Forrest. In the background, we're seeing another virtual racing compound car looking to go all the way around the outside of Lee Tucker was Peter Plasto. He didn't quite make it work. We've now got to jump all the way back up to Cody Steig and Nicholas Cacato. Nicholas looking to the inside on the brakes. Is he going to get it done? No, not just as yet, but you can see Matt Forrest is chomping at the bit, trying to get back past Peter Plasto once again in towards the braking area. So having made 10th place just a few laps ago after an incident from Stuart Jacklin, that promoted him up into 9th place. So Stuart has retaken to the circuit without too much of an issue. As far as I'm aware, it was self-inflicted. Potentially Sean Nicholson has had an off as well. But at the moment, Peter Plasto doing what he can to work his way up in towards the top 8. Cody Steig desperately trying to hold on to that 5th place, albeit with ×2 pressure on him, albeit with Nicholas Cacato and Matthew Forrest both nose to tail trying to get by. Mats has got to be so patient here. He can't just lunge for the move, because even if he does get past Nicholas, he can't go anywhere because he's still got Cody Steig to try and get past. So in towards the hairpin we go once again, and Matt Forrest can't really do much in the way of attack, but Nicholas Cacato slowly getting closer within, 4/10 of a second from Cody Steig. It's a little too far for a lunge on the brakes. I think Peter Plasto has managed to get past Lee Tucker by the looks of it. Yes, he has almost an overlap there heading through the left-hander, but I'm assuming on the exit of the hairpin, that's Peter Plasto up into what is 8th place, but Chris Pio Lee Tucker, isn't going to take it lying down. He's really trying to push back now, not just going to let him get away with making that position there. So still pushing forward, but at the moment, Peter Plasto up into 8th place, and Cody Steig driving a very, very wide Porsche 992 Super Cup car, because both the drivers behind can't really throw anything at him. Nicholas Cacato still sat there in 6th place. Matthew Forrest there or thereabouts, doing what he can in the final 30 seconds of this race to just try and make the move. So on to the final lap of the race now. That's a really big lock-up from Nicholas Cacato. I think he grabbed the grass just a little bit, and that meant that he locked the outside front, and as soon as the inside front became unloaded, that was the whole front axle just all locked up, and he couldn't get the car slowed down in time. But now he's trying to push back after Matthew Forrest snuck up the inside on the brakes. We go in towards the right-hander. Is he going to get it slowed down? Another lock-up. Matt Forrest looks for the cutback. It will be the outside for the next corner. He just about manages to make it work, finds the grip on the unpolished surface, and Matthew Forrest now in 6th place, after having to fight for it once and then fight for it again just to get past the virtual racing machine of Nicholas Cacato. And another lock-up from Nicholas, so clearly some sort of mechanical issue with that car. It's very, very weird that that's happened twice in the space of one lap, so Nicholas will have to go careful on this final lap of the race, but it gives me great pleasure in saying for the first time this season, Tyler Campbell is on his way to take to the top step of the podium. So on the exit of the hairpin we are, and then through the right, through the left, and towards what will be the start-finish line. There we go. Tyler Campbell crosses the line to take to the top step of the podium. Martin de Jong finishes in second. Chris Roberts finishes in a hard-fought third after fending off Remco Barlow's attentions throughout most of the race to finish in fourth. Matthew Forrest will finish in fifth, and Nicholas Cacato somewhat down the order, right the way down in sixth place. We've had an incident for Cody Steig. Potentially he's ran out of fuel. I was going to say he was due to finish in fifth place, but it's all come undone. Lee Tucker will finish seventh place. Peter Plasto will finish eighth. Chris Pio in ninth, and Cody Steig will cross the line in 10th place. I believe with fuel surge, we saw it at the first round of the season for Peter Plasto. He still managed to take the win at Road Atlanta. However, it was only by around 0.3 of a second. Craig Thompson in the background finishes in 12th. Sean Nicholson in 13th and Stuart Jacklin in 14th. We'll get some more confirmed results to you as soon as we get them. So we've just got to wait for Stuart Jacklin to cross the line. And then we can slowly bring an end to the first race of today and then set our sights forward on towards the 25-minute feature race. So the results from the sprint race are as follows. Tyler Campbell for FCR Esports finishes 1.4 seconds clear of Martin de Jong in second, and Chris Roberts rounds out your podium for Virtual Racing Compound. Then we get back to Remco Barlow in fourth, Matthew Forrest finishing in fifth, and it's Nicholas Cacato in sixth, Lee Tucker in seventh, Peter Plasto finishes in 8th ahead of Chris Pio and Cody Steig crossing the line in 10th place after looking good for a P5 finish. Stephen Orrell finishes in 11th, followed by Craig Thompson, Sean Nicholson, Stuart Jackson and Gaston Maceroni. We have lost Alexander King. He didn't take to the grid at the first race of the evening, and I no longer believe he will be partaking in the feature race either, which is such a shame. I was looking forward to seeing how Alex would get on. But with the feature race on the way, we have 25 minutes of further action to bring to you. Don't go away. So the 25-minute feature race will very shortly be getting underway. On pole position, reverse grid pole position, is Cody Steig. The timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen will update as soon as we enter green flag conditions. You can see P. Plasto sat waiting patiently behind. Revs rising in the background, just everybody getting the cars up to temperature. And the lights are on now. And in a few moments' time, we'll be going racing for the second time here at Sebring. The lights extinguish themselves. Now it's an okay start from our pole sitter. Immediately goes defensive and I think gets turned there by Peter Plasto. We'll have to have a look back at that just to see what happened. But in towards the concrete barrier goes Cody Steig. I think he came over very defensive and couldn't quite justify it this early on in the race. However, Matthew Forrest is already up into third place. There is Chris Pio. Started on the outside of the front row of the grid, still leading the way. Lee Tucker, his Apex Tech teammate, sat behind. Then we get back to Matt Forrest. Chris Roberts, there's contact between Matt Forrest and Lee Tucker. Once again, Matt getting caught out very slightly on the brakes in these opening laps. Cold tyres and cold brakes potentially because of that. And now we have 3 Virtual Racing Compound cars, 3rd, 4th and 5th. Matt Forrest, Chris Roberts and Peter Plasto. Tyler Campbell sat there in 6th place. Nicholas Cacato in 7th. Stephen Orrell in 8th. And it's Gaston Maceroni in 9th, followed by Stuart Jacklin right the way down in 10th. From there, we've got drivers that have lost places. Remco Barlow is apparently down 6 places. I find that very hard to believe this early on in the race. However, he is quite a way back. Then the recovering Cody Steig, albeit with damage on his car, right the way down in 12th place now. Martin de Jong sat a little further back as well, but at the moment it's all go between the VRC teammates. Chris Roberts is looking to the inside, looking to the outside, decides just to wait behind as patiently as he can, runs slightly deep on the brakes. Fastest lap of the race for Chris Roberts, a 1 minute 4.590. So all of that draft is really helping him. I expect further improvements as the race wears on. That's Pete Plasto fired towards the wall. Does a great job of keeping it out the barrier initially, but bouncing over the gravel, bouncing over the grass, and I think a little escape road there sent the car skywards and picked up a little bit more front-end damage on his Porsche 992, so that could very slightly affect the championship standings. He's got a little bit of side damage on that car, and the aero damage really isn't helping the braking performance. Out towards the escape road goes Peter Plasto, and these first few laps have been absolutely frantic at the moment. Chris Pio leading the way. Lee Tucker sat there in 2nd place, and for the moment, Matt Forrest is in 3rd, but he has a big look for 2nd place. So late on the brakes, does manage to get it slowed down. Chris Roberts underneath the rear wing of his teammate. So the top 5 all nose to tail. Chris Pio, Lee Tucker, Matt Forrest, Chris Roberts, and then Tyler Campbell. In towards the hairpin we go once again. Matt Forrest makes a lunge for the lead. Chris Roberts is trying to follow him through. You can see Tyler Campbell sat there in 4th place. Chris Pio in 3rd just up the road. It looks like there's contact between the pair of them. Yes, there is. Chris Pio runs out of road a little bit and potentially just elbows Tyler Campbell out towards the grass. He does manage to return to the circuit as safely as possible. You can now see Lee Tucker, the second of the Apex Tech cars, goes up into 3rd place past Chris Pio, his teammate. Nicholas Cacato has had a great view of this. Currently sat there in 5th place. Stephen Orrell just sat behind in 6th. Fastest lap of the race for Steve, a 1 minute 2.61. So really starting to improve as the race wears on. On to lap 4 of the race at the moment, but Matt Forrest still leading the way. Chris Roberts sat there in 2nd place, trying to escape the attentions of Lee Tucker behind. And if the VRC teammates can really work together, very wide goes Chris Pio. So still struggling with the brakes are a few of the drivers. But at the moment, VRC 1-2, if they can continue the progress they are making and just work together, we could be on for a good result for the pair of those two. But at the moment, Lee Tucker sat there in 3rd, Nicholas Cacato 4th, Stephen Orrell in 5th, Tyler Campbell recovering in 6th place, and Gaston Messeroni not too far behind. Stephen Orrell now under ever-increasing pressure from behind. Tyler Campbell just sat waiting patiently. Not too much time between the pair of them. Just over 0.3 of a second. Gaston Messeroni not too far adrift either. Then we get back to Lee Tucker, who is sort of in the middle at the moment. He's got a little bit of pressure from Chris Pio, a second behind. But up the road, Stephen Orrell under more and more pressure. He gets elbowed almost towards the outside. Tyler Campbell later on the brakes does manage to get it slowed down, but wouldn't necessarily say forced from Tyler Campbell, but he definitely made his intentions known. Nice, clean, concise move from himself. So recovering now back up to 4th place, chasing after Nicholas Cacato, only 1.1 seconds up the road. The VRC teammate still pulling away. So Chris Roberts currently sat there in 2nd place, 3.2 seconds ahead of Nicholas Cacato, now in 3rd place. Albeit for how long that will be, I don't know. Tyler Campbell, like I say, pushing forward in 4th at the moment and bringing Stephen Orrell and Gaston Messeroni with him. So it's almost 4 cars all vying over the final step on the podium. Matt Forrest still leading the way more than comfortably, 0.6 of a second ahead of his VRC teammate Chris Roberts. So Nicholas Cacato crosses the line now in 3rd place. Tyler Campbell sets a personal best lap time. Gaston Messeroni does so as well. So does Lee Tucker. Stephen Orrell and Gaston Messeroni almost making contact in the background. I think both drivers locking up in their haste to try and keep up with Tyler Campbell up the road. So that now means 5th place has somewhat settled down, but Tyler Campbell taking so much time out of the 3rd place driver for Virtua Racing, Nicholas Cacato, on the brakes once again. It's now down to within 0.3 of a second. Stephen Orrell, a big lock up in the background, does manage to get it slowed down. Potentially a little bit of contact between himself and Gaston Messeroni. So once again, those two are back nose to tail. But what can Tyler Campbell do? He has the draft assistance all the way down towards the hairpin. So Nicholas Cacato tries to hook the inside line, washes out slightly wide, but somewhat gifts the inside to Tyler Campbell. Decides maybe now isn't the time to start defending that position. Tyler Campbell goes through, grabs the apex, position made and secured. Nicholas Cacato may be looking for the reverse strategy here, just trying to let him through initially and then sit in the draft assistance and see what he can do about making that position back in the latter stages of the race. 7.5 minutes of the race gone, heading on to lap number 8 now, and you can see Gaston Messeroni and Stephen Orrell have swapped places indeed. So 5th place now for Gaston Messeroni. So Virtua Racing currently sat 4th and 5th, doing very, very well indeed. But Stephen Orrell isn't just going to let him take it. Runs very, very wide, just about manages to keep it on the concrete. He's under pressure already from Lee Tucker behind in the Apex Tech car. And then you get back to the WPR Racing Team entry of Remco Barlow. So at the moment, this mid-pack, it can't get any closer. So it's still a 3-way battle here for 5th place. Gaston Messeroni sat there in 5th. Stephen Orrell in 6th. Runs slightly wide and then a big flick of oversteer on the exit. So Gaston Messeroni will drop 1, maybe 2, definitely 2 positions now. So Gaston Messeroni, in the space of 1 corner, has lost 2 places just from a very minute mistake. It just shows how close this field is. A little flick of oversteer and couldn't quite get it all collected up in time. Ended up heading towards the grass. Managed to keep it on the road for the most part and then rejoined behind the battle he was defending from. So at the moment, Stephen Orrell now up into 5th place. Remco Barlow still sat there in 6th. Gaston Messeroni now down to 7th place. Peter Plasto still trying to improve and work his way up the order. Stuart Jacklin only a few tenths in front. You can see through the tyre smoke and through the dust cloud we go. So somebody has clearly had quite a big lock up in towards the right-hander and ran slightly wide as a result. But Peter Plasto hot on the heels of Stuart Jacklin. What can he do about making this move? Going down the back straight now 2 tenths separating the pair of them. We'll see which way Stuart Jacklin goes. We've seen a lot of drivers just bleed the car wide. We almost see it here. We definitely see it here, but then back towards the inside line goes Stuart Jacklin. Very, very clever defensive sort of driving from himself. Peter Plastow, he's going to have to go the long way around, all the way around the outside. Great driving from Stuart Jacklin. Pinched Peter Plastow towards the exit, but Pete isn't going to take it lying down once again. He's all over the rear wing of Stuart Jacklin. So the privateer entry really bringing it to the VRC driver. On the brakes, almost up the inside, Peter Plastow. You can see the car squirming around on the brakes, but Stuart Jacklin outbrakes himself and over the grass he goes. I think he avoids the wall, but a nice easy overtake for Peter Plastow there. Just forced the mistake. So up into 10th place. Stuart Jacklin now 5 seconds behind, right the way down in 11th. Chris Roberts in 2nd place, coming under threat now from Tyler Campbell. In towards the hairpin we go. Very popular overtaking place is this hairpin. Tyler Campbell just sat behind. He's been closing up over the past couple of laps, now within 3 tenths of a second. Chris Roberts has been in 2nd place almost since the start and followed Matt Forrest through into the podium places. Tyler Campbell now within a tenth of a second. A big look on the brakes, but decides to just jump back in the draft once again. No need to really over-apply the pressure. He's got plenty of time. Still 10 minutes of the race to go, so he could just sit and wait, maybe try to force the mistake for the next 5 or 6 minutes, and then maybe think about going for a move. But he's clearly got the pace over Chris Roberts here. He's been lapping, not necessarily quicker, but I think a little bit more consistent, which is what has brought him closer to Chris Roberts. Through the left-hander we go. And Chris is now 4 seconds away from Matt Forrest up the road, so he has no hope of some sort of teammate assistance. You can see Matt heading in towards the hairpin already. You'll be able to see him at the bottom of your screen there now. And in towards the hairpin once again. It is still Tyler Campbell just sat behind, so another lap completed of the Sebring circuit, heading on to lap number 16 now. And Chris Roberts still sat in 2nd place. However, it seems like the time is numbered at this point. You can't really see him, or I can't really see him remaining in that position for too much longer, because Tyler Campbell is just there or thereabouts, and that's all it takes to force a mistake and pick up another place. So less than a lap later now, and we're still seeing Tyler Campbell all over the coattails of Chris Roberts. Tyler jumps towards the outside. It will be the long way round for the right-handed hairpin. But Chris Roberts on the brakes slightly later. Is he going to get it slowed down and in towards the apex? Yes, he is. Tyler Campbell looks for the cutback. Can't quite get the bite off the corner. But once again, he will be in that draft range, so he might be able to have another look on the brakes. Through the left-hander we go, and Chris Roberts is forced towards the outside, but parks the car in the middle of the road. Clever driving from Chris, does manage to get the car slowed down, and once again, Chris Roberts manages to hang on to 2nd place, but it's by the skin of his teeth, and it's only getting closer to a positional change now. So Tyler Campbell doing everything he can to get out of 3rd place and work his way in towards 2nd. Almost had an overlap there to go for a move in towards Sector 2. Bouncing over the curbs, the pair of them go. And Chris Roberts just about hanging on to 2nd place. This is really good defensive driving from Chris Roberts, but the progression of Tyler Campbell throughout the race has really been developing himself, so he's just slowly been applying the pressure in all the right places, and it's really starting to come together for him. So on for a podium at the moment, but he's trying to better it, trying to get onto the next step, which of course will be 2nd place. Once again, he's going to look for the cutback as Chris Roberts goes defensive, but can't quite get the acceleration off the corner. And then heading towards the start-finish line once again, on towards lap 18 of the race now. Matt Forrest still pulling away as this duo are battling. Can Tyler Campbell get to the inside this time? Yes, he can. Once again, Chris Roberts goes defensive, but there's much more of an overlap this time. Chris does try and turn in as late as possible, gives him all the room in the world. He will have the inside for the next corner, and if Tyler Campbell can just about maintain a bit of room on the outside, which he can't, he might have been able to sneak his way up the inside, but they're still nose to tail. Chris Roberts in 2nd, Tyler Campbell in 3rd. So still nose to tail now. Chris Roberts sat there in 2nd place, defending with all his might from Tyler Campbell in 3rd. Heading in towards Sector 2 now. Tyler Campbell's closer than we've seen him before. They now dive on the brakes, and there's contact between the pair of them. Tyler Campbell runs into the tail end of Chris Roberts, and Chris goes straight in towards the tyre stack, but very sensible driving, very sportsmanlike driving from Tyler Campbell. Allows Chris Roberts to rejoin in front of him, so that is brilliant to see. I take my hat off to you, Tyler. That's really, really nice driving from yourself. You recognised the mistake and decided to let Chris rejoin, but that has now gifted Nicholas Cacato 2nd place, and Remco Barlow now up into 3rd. So Matt Forrest some 12.5 seconds in the lead over Nicholas Cacato. Remco Barlow sat there in third place. Chris Roberts now in fourth. Tyler Campbell in fifth. Back to how they were just a few moments ago, nose to tail. In the background, Chris Pio defending from Stephen Orrell. And we've now got less than 4 minutes of the race remaining, and it's still all to play for. So now we have three main battles of note. Chris Roberts and Tyler Campbell very, very close indeed. In the background, you can see now Stephen Orrell and Chris Pio nose to tail. And then we have the battle for the final two steps on the podium. Nicholas Cacato under pressure from Remco Barlow. Remco's so close, and now we've seen the change of position. Has Chris Roberts gone off? He's very, very sideways on the exit of the corner. Let's have a look back to figure out what happened. So both drivers still nose to tail. Chris Roberts under intense pressure, very, very quick in, and just can't get the car slowed down. You can see a big lock up on the inside tyre as that gets unloaded. And Chris Roberts there in fifth place now. Stephen Orrell in the background still piling the pressure on Chris Pio. But that now means Chris Roberts down into fifth. Tyler Campbell promoted up into fourth. So on the final lap of the race now, Chris Pio under ever-increasing pressure from Stephen Orrell behind, and the podium is still not as yet settled. Nicholas Cacato has Remco Barlow within half a second. Matt Forrest on the run-up towards the line in a few moments' time. We'll make sure we catch him crossing the line, but Nicholas Cacato still under pressure, 3/10 separating the pair of them. But Matthew Forrest for the final time, working his way through the final corner. So the feature race here at Sebring, taken by Matt Forrest. A dominating victory from himself, got up the front and then got clear from any sort of pressure behind. Stephen Orrell and Chris Pio still battling in the background. You can see there Chris Pio grabs the apex first. Stephen Orrell left without much to do on the outside, but Nicholas Cacato will take the second step on the podium ahead of Remco Barlow. Tyler Campbell benefits from Chris Roberts' mistake earlier on and finishes in fourth place. Chris Roberts does cross the line in fifth. And who will it be between Chris Pio and Stephen Orrell? It will be Chris Pio, 0.08 of a second, separating himself from seventh place. And Stuart Jacklin, heading through the hairpin now, will be on the way to take home 8th place, followed by Cody Steig, of course, pole sitter. However, with the defence at the start, maybe catching the driver behind out, and that sent him in towards the Armco barrier and couldn't really improve from there. So Cody Steig will cross the line in 9th place, and Lee Tucker in the melee works his way through the smoke to finish in 10th place. So the results from the feature race are as follows. Matthew Forrest wins, and very, very clear indeed, 15.3 seconds ahead of Nicholas Cacato in second place, who just about manages to pip Remco Barlow to the line in third. Then it's Tyler Campbell and Chris Roberts fourth and fifth. Chris Pio and Stephen Orrell very close together as they cross the line, only 0.08 of a second separating the pair of them for 6th and 7th place. Stuart Jacklin finishes in 8th, Cody Steig in 9th, and Lee Tucker rounds out your top 10. And then we get back to Martin de Jong and Peter Plasto, the last of the finishers, followed then by Gaston Maceroni, Sean Nicholson and Craig Thompson, all retiring from the feature race. But this has been round 2 of the virtual racing compound Porsche Super Cup Series. The next time out, we go to Interlagos, and there will be yet more action in both the sprint and the feature race, and the championship standings are getting closer and closer together as well. So it's still all to play for. We'll see you next time.